Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, one and all, and welcome to our worship service at First Unitarian Society of Ithaca. Here we gather, nurturing our connections, seeking inspiration, and embracing change. My name is David Solomon, and I can take my mask off because I'm tested, and I am your celebration associate today. Thank you very much for joining us, those of you who are here, those of you who are watching online. It feels especially good to be together today. And we're here every Sunday, so please come. If you're out there, come here. Please check our website for more information about how to create connections. If you'd like to receive updates describing opportunities for engagement, including our super informative weekly announcement, please email a request to office@uuithaca.org. That's office@uuithaca.org. Newcomers are especially invited to visit our website and complete a newcomer form on the homepage. Our service this morning is being live streamed from our sanctuary in downtown Ithaca and will be available for later viewing on our YouTube channel. And we have a special announcement today from Madonna Stallman. So Madonna, come on up and share your good news.
Hello, everyone. I have great news to share with you this morning. As you may know, our congregation is a member, along with several other local congregations, of the Ithaca Sanctuary Alliance. The Ithaca Sanctuary Alliance provides sanctuary housing for immigrants in our community who are facing deportation. Our Social Justice Committee, one of our small group ministries, and I have been contributing to groceries and other forms of support to our current sanctuary residents, Drusilla and her 4-year-old daughter, Jessie, since their arrival to the First Congregational Church Sanctuary Apartment in July of 2020. And now, here's the best part. After 2.5 years of living in sanctuary, Drusilla and Jessie are safe from deportation. The Ithaca Sanctuary Alliance is now asking for help from member congregations with getting Drusilla and Jessie established in the Ithaca community. Drusilla will soon receive her work permit and begin full-time work. She and Jessie are looking for affordable housing, an affordable living situation like a small apartment or shared space in a larger house. If you can help out in this way or have any ideas that would be helpful to this transition, please contact Jackie Jablonski, who is the Social Justice Committee chairperson, or me, Madonna Stallman. Thank you, Fuse It, for your continued support of the Ithaca Sanctuary Alliance.
Thank you, Madonna, and to the entire social justice team for all the great work you guys are doing. Our guest speaker today comes to us from just up the lake and is no stranger to First Unitarian. Barb Blom is minister of the United Ministry of Aurora and founding director of the Interfaith Center for Action and Healing. She is also an alumna and lecturer in religion at Wells College. So welcome back to Barb. Please join me in saying the chalice lighting words, which are in the order of service if you're here. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action.
to get my step stool. I tell everybody I might be short, but I have a tall aura, so watch out. I just have to say before I get started, what a treat it is to be here. I know some of you from 20 years ago when I started out in ministry here at the First Unitarian Church of Ithaca with Reverend Dick Gilbert, who actually, by the way, sends his hellos to everybody. He still also has very fond memories. And walking in here today, I was just hit by an overwhelming feelings, especially since this is the first time I've been in here since Mark died. So it's really wonderful to be here with you all and see some familiar faces and maybe some out there on YouTube. But anyway, that said, I would like for you all to take a deep breath as we prepare to reflect and sing and meditate on how we can make our world a little bit better. To worship God is nothing other than to serve people. It does not need rosaries, prayer, carpets, or robes. All people are members of the same body, created from one essence. If fate brings suffering to one member, the others cannot stay at rest. By Sadi. So now let us join in our hymn number 295, Sing Out Praises for the Journey.
Good morning, friends. I am so grateful to be here with you this morning. This month, we have been talking about widening the circle and this idea of building a more inclusive, more welcoming community. Let's take a look inside our Wonder Box. In here, I have some rubber bands. There's a basket right up front here, and maybe you picked up your own rubber band. Maybe Stephanie gave you one when you came in. And if you didn't, or you are watching from home, I invite you to go ahead and collect a rubber band if you'd like. The concept of widening is complex yet simple. It is as simple as the metaphor of a rubber band. Rubber bands, like people, come in different sizes. This one here is pretty thick. I have this great blue one. Also thick, doesn't stretch as far. think you mostly have some little thin rubber bands. They have different thicknesses and abilities to stretch, shorter, longer. When you pull on your rubber band, it stretches and then it snaps back with resilience. The modern rubber band goes through a process called vulcanization. Vulcanization is a chemical process in which the rubber is heated with sulfur. The process involves the formation of cross-links between long rubber molecules. This gives the rubber durability with increased flexibility to snap back, just like you see here with my rubber band, and like the one that you have is doing right now. We human beings have our own cross-links, just like the vulcanized rubber bands. We have our family, our friends, our community, and we are meant to widen our circles. Stretch it out. And sometimes, without even realizing what we are doing, we let our rubber band snap back when we should be stretching it wide. And perhaps unintentionally not letting people into our circle. I'm going to share a story with you now called Mullah Nasruddin and the Hungry Coat. This story has been adapted from a Middle Eastern Islamic folktale, which is attributed to several different countries, including Turkey and Syria. Mullah Nasruddin had been working in the fields all day long. He was tired and sweaty, and his clothes and his shoes were covered with mud and stains. Because he had been fasting all day long for Ramadan, he was also quite hungry. But finally, it was almost sundown, and Nasruddin knew that he would soon be able to eat. The wealthiest man in town had invited everyone to come break their fasts in his home that evening with a huge feast. Nasruddin knew that he would be late if he went home to change his clothes before heading into town. He decided it was better to arrive in dirty clothes than to be late. Oh, what a party it would be. What a feast. As he walked to the wealthy man's home, Nasruddin imagined the delicious foods he would soon be eating: dates, lentils and chickpeas, olives and bread, hummus, falafel, chicken and beef, and best of all, the desserts: halva, date rolls, figs, and baklava. When Nasruddin arrived, the wealthy man opened the door and looked Nasruddin up and down scornfully, from his worn, ragged clothing down to his muddy shoes. Without a word of welcome, he gestured for Nasruddin to come in and walked abruptly away. Nasruddin joined the throngs of people who were all dressed in their finest clothing. The tables were laden with all sorts of delicious foods: dates, lentils and chickpeas, olives and bread, hummus, falafel, chicken and beef, and best of all, the desserts: halva, date rolls, figs, and baklava. Despite his efforts to hurry, the seats were all taken, and nobody tried to move over or make space for Nasruddin. In fact, nobody offered him food. He had to reach over and around people to get any food for his plate. Nobody spoke to him. It was as if he wasn't even there. The other guests ignored him so completely that Nasruddin could not enjoy the food on his plate, no matter how finely prepared and how tasty it was. In fact, after only a few bites, Nasruddin was so uncomfortable that he decided to leave. He hurried home and changed into his finest clothing, including a beautiful coat. Nasruddin returned to the feast, and this time the host welcomed him with a huge smile. Come in, greeted the host. As Nasruddin entered, people waved and called him from all corners of the room as they invited him to sit near them and offered him food. Nasruddin sat down quietly. Picking up a plump fig, he carefully placed it into his coat pocket, saying, "Eat, coat, eat." Next, he took a handful of nuts, and he put those into his pocket, saying, "Eat, coat, eat. Enjoy that." Now, he began to feed his coat in earnest, grabbing all sorts of foods. He fed the coat lentils and chickpeas, olives and bread, hummus, falafel, chicken and beef, and best of all, the desserts, halva, date rolls, figs, and baklava. The people gathered became silent as they watched this strange behavior. Soon, everyone in the room was staring at Nasruddin, wondering what he was doing. The host hurried over. "Nasruddin, whatever are you doing? Why are you feeding your coat in this manner?" "Well," replied Nasruddin, "when I first came to this feast in my old farming clothes, dirty from the day's work, I was not welcome. No one would speak with me. But when I changed into this coat, suddenly I was greeted warmly. So I realized that it was not me that was welcome at this party, but my clothing. So I am feeding my coat." As a people and a community, we speak so often the words, "All are welcome." And this story challenges us to re-examine that statement and to dig deep and ask ourselves if our actions are living up to our intentions. Like our rubber bands, we can choose to stretch and widen, even when it maybe feels challenging or uncomfortable, to choose through our actions to be radically inclusive. And I hope that we can all work together to make this a community where we are welcoming to everyone for who they are, not how they might appear or what our perception of them might be. May we continue to do the work of widening our circle and providing spiritual sustenance and welcome to everyone.
Good morning. Because joys and sorrows are now shared during the service, I want to give you a couple of reminders. First of all, you can send the notices to the team at Joys and Sorrows, Joys, A-N-D, Sorrows, at uuithaca.org before the service, anytime before the service by 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. Or you can fill out one of the green sheets that's in the pews and put them in the basket over just inside the parlor door. When considering what is shared in Joys and Sorrows, please note that our services are live streamed and available to the public on YouTube channel. In a spirit of reverence, unity, and care, we take time now to witness and honor the joys and sorrows of our community. We share those events that call for our prayers and support, our praise and celebration. From Magdalene Lindeberg, this is the 5th anniversary of my mother's death. Still so grateful for the welcome that she received here, meaning here at Fuse-It. And from Don and Rita Barber, we have moved into our retirement home on the farm. But the joy is that our daughter Kara and her family are moving and settling in to the family farmhouse, which is right across the street, right? And I also want to share as a joy an appreciation for Walt Peck this morning. Walt Peck could be appreciated with a whole long list. But what I'm particularly appreciative for him right now is his sending of the history, of the short history, and also his sending about the financial information for our congregational conversation this morning, because they are so clear, and I think they will really help us in looking forward. Now let us bring into this community and space of healing and hope those for whom we have concerns, those we are holding in our thoughts, in our hearts, and our prayers, let us call these names out loud now. We extend loving kindness to all in our world, and let us not forget to extend loving kindness to ourselves. Today, tomorrow, and beyond, let our hands be outstretched in kindness, and let us keep showing up to our lives and each other with an open heart, no matter what. Love and courage to us all. Blessed be, and amen.
Our spoken meditation this morning are the words of UU minister Todd Taylor. Who can be certain where the self stops and the universe begins? When we breathe, it is the air from the passing wind that fills our lungs. When we taste, it is of the earth's flavors and its saltiness. When we eat, it is of the field's corn and its wheat. When we open our eyes, they are filled with sunlight and starlight. Who can be certain where the self stops and the universe begins?
If you've been following along this month, our meditation song is Draw the Circle Wide by Mark Miller. We're now going to put the first two parts that we've learned together. And I was looking in your order of service. If you're following along there, there's the two parts you can't really tell where they are. The first part is the first 3 lines. We will sing those 3 lines twice, and then we will sing the following 4 lines twice.
Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle
Each week, we take an offering to sustain the important ministries and programs of this congregation and its presence in Ithaca. The giving information is shown in the order of service. For those of you watching remotely, the text number and website will appear on your screen during the offertory music and in the information below the live stream image on YouTube. Giving to the plate is important. It's a symbol of our gratitude for this service and our ongoing commitment to support the work of this church. So please take a moment and give through either the text option or the giving button on our church website. And if you're attending in person, you can place your offering in the box by the door when you exit after the service. Please join me in saying the offertory words printed in your order of service. May these gifts bring about connection, inspiration, and engagement within these walls and beyond.
I'm going to read you a Bible verse this morning. Take a deep breath. I used to be you. This is the story of the Syrophoenician woman. From there he set out and went away to the region of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there, yet he could not escape notice. But a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and she bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile, a Syrophoenician. She begged him to cast a demon out of her daughter. But he said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." But she answered him, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. Your faith has made her well." So she went home, found the child lying on the bed, and the demon was gone. Well, in my church, I'd say something else, but anyway, I won't. because you're you. So I'm going to try to speak not at the podium. If you can't hear me or the people on YouTube can't hear me, can somebody let me know? Because it's hard for me to. Okay, I'll try to use the. Got in the habit long ago of not standing behind the podium because I could never see anybody because I was too short. So many years ago, long time ago, I grew up. I think I got it. I grew up in a Presbyterian church. You know, back during the heydays, lots of kids programs. The church put on a new edition. It was the 60s and 70s, and everybody went to church. As soon as I could, about 16, and my mom said I didn't have to anymore, I quit going to church. Quit for a number of years until my early 30s, when I had a series of very tragic deaths in my life. My brother was hit by a car, then my father committed suicide, and then my oldest and dearest friend from childhood, who had been my rock, was also hit by a car along with her 2 little boys. So I didn't know what to do. I was lost. And I discovered the First Unitarian Church of Ithaca. I used to sneak in the door after the service started, and I'd sneak out of the door before the service ended. But it was very, very healing. And it was back when Herb Adams was here. And he must have seen me do that for a number of times that year. And one time he wasn't preaching, he wasn't in the podium, and I was sitting, I actually even still remember, I was sitting back there, and he came and he sat next to me. He didn't say anything to me, he just sat next to me. And that changed my life. That simple gesture changed my life. And I started getting involved in the works of the church. I started in religious ed and started attending more regularly and got to know Lois and started to understand about Unitarian Universalism a little bit more. And then I started getting interested in religion. And one day I was searching on the internet, I was substitute teaching, and I had some free time, and I saw this seminary in Rochester, and I thought, well, that's weird. And then I drove up there, and next thing I knew, I was enrolled in seminary. It's like, gosh, how did this happen? And then, on a beautiful September day, I was driving there. I didn't tell anybody, not even Dick, that I was planning on attending seminary, or I wasn't even planning, I was just going to go for a day. And I was driving to Rochester, beautiful, sunny fall day, sat down at my desk, opened a Bible for the first time in 15 years on September 11th, 2001. And about 15 minutes later, somebody came into our classroom and told us the towers had fell. And it was just an incredible, I thought to myself, it's a good thing I didn't tell anybody I was coming here, because I don't know if I'm supposed to be here or not. And then I got a terrible case of shingles, but I stayed in seminary. But I was a Unitarian, and I didn't believe in any of that God stuff. I didn't really want to know about Jesus too much, but guess what? That's what they talk about in seminary. And what I learned, though, was that Jesus was a Unitarian. This story of the Syrophoenician woman, he was exhausted. He'd had enough of people. He was done. He'd been preaching to the people, they were worshiping, they thought he was great. And this woman comes out of nowhere. In the other story that this is in, it's also in Matthew, called the Canaanite story. The disciples kind of make fun of her. They want her to leave. They're just not being very nice, and Jesus is not nice at all. He calls her a dog and says, you're not even allowed to eat until the children eat. But in a clever play with words, she says, but even the dogs are entitled to the crumbs. And then Jesus says, and this, especially for Unitarians, is very interesting, he says, your faith has made you well. He does not say, your faith in me has made you well. He says, your faith has made you well. She gives Jesus a lecture. This is the only place in the Bible where Jesus is schooled, where he's taught a lesson. And it's by a woman. And it's by the lowliest of women that can be, a Syro-Phoenician woman who is considered, well, in his words, the dogs of the earth. And she schools him. And then there are several other, there's lots of these stories. There's the woman at the well, where Jesus meets, again, a woman and starts a conversation with her. Again, a woman from another culture, another religion, and he starts this long conversation with her. And then much to his disciples' chagrin, he actually goes home with her for 3 days and meets her family and talks in the village and interacts with the village. There's the 10 blind men, and Jesus heals all the blind men. The 10th blind man is the only one who turns around and says thank you. And again, it's a Syro-Phoenician, a dog. There are many of these stories where Jesus goes out and he eats, he drinks, he learns from, he engages with the other. And as I've learned in my ministry and through the Interfaith Center for Action and Healing, it's when we go out, it's when we engage in learning and listening and really listening to people's stories that we develop a better relationship and then a space where we can talk about the more difficult things. Many of you may have seen the article in the Ithaca Journal last week. I have 3 young Afghan refugee youth who've been living with me for 3 years now. They have been through unbelievable difficulties getting here. We watched the Harriet Tubman movie one time, and one of them turned to me and he said, "This was my life. Climbing through fences, running behind horses, being shot at, 11, 15 years old, being arrested and thrown in jail in a strange country where you can't speak the language, put into a refugee camp." One of them said to me, the youngest, he said, "I would go to the park and we'd walk around and I would see families. And I was just devastated seeing all these families, and nobody would even look at me. Nobody would even give me the time of day." He was an outcast. He was a dog. The other young man ended up in Indonesia, and they told him where the refugee camp was, and they said, "Go there." And he went there and he knocked on the door and they said, "We don't have any room." He slept outside in that front door with a cardboard box that he found and his knapsack. And some people would give him food in passing, but he said he got so hungry that he was barely able to walk sometimes. And that was 20 days before he was let into the refugee camp. They were in their refugee camps for about 3 years before they finally, the UNHCR vetted them for this program, which is how they ended up in New York, and how I, very luckily, am honored to have them in my life. They are remarkable young men. They make the high honor roll every year. As their principal said to me, they strive for greatness in everything they do. Remarkable young men, and a blessing to me and an honor to have them. And also, where I live in Aurora, we are in the heart of Cayuga Nation, the Haudenosaunee community. We have developed the church, and many of us in the community are developing relationships with the Haudenosaunee. And as some of you may know, there's a lot of division within the Cayuga Nation. And actually today at 2 o'clock, if you're interested in learning more, at Southside, they're going to be talking a little bit about the issues that they're having internally. But I've learned also a lot from them just by sharing meals with them. They've come to we sold peach trees because Aurora used to be known as Peach Town because there were so many peach trees until, what's his name, Washington sent Sullivan in to destroy the village and all the peach trees. But, and we also have, there are 40 to 50,000 immigrant and migrant workers working in Cayuga County on the farms. There's a church on that a lot of them attend, and I've gone to that church a few times now just to meet them, and I don't understand a word they say because they speak Spanish, But it is a very moving experience. It's very different from any church I've ever been to. There's just so intense praying that goes on in there. You can feel the Spirit at work. They're just so intensely praying that I'm inspired to that connection that is greater than us, whatever you want to call it, when I go there. And the same with the Cayuga Nation. Their connection to the Spirit and to the earth is so powerful, so much more powerful than what we generally experience as Americans in this country who are quite privileged and kind of removed from that deep emotional connection that they have. So I loved Emily's story today because it's the stories that broaden our circles. It's not marches are good, writing letters to the editor are good, but those don't necessarily change lives. It's getting to know people. It's like Jesus going out to the woman at the well, to her village, and getting to know them. Those are the things that change lives. I have a neighbor, my next door neighbor, has a great big, colorful sign out front of his house that comes into my bedroom window, and it says Trump on it. I know that he put it right out there just to get me. I know it. He also hangs his American flag he's been hanging his American flag at half-staff since January. Not sure why, but I could guess. But I have developed a relationship with him, and he is actually the first person I call if I have an issue. He comes right over. He's a decent man. He has a family he loves. He's an honorable father. He has cows that he treats very well. They're outside most of the time. They're able to eat good food. He takes good care of them. He's a decent man. And knowing his story makes me appreciate it all the more. He had a difficult childhood, and I appreciate it all the more. So it's not just those people for whom we might feel is the other that we can embrace and support, maybe the indigenous peoples, or the refugees, or the poor, or the hungry, but it's also includes the people who wear the MAGA hats. If we really want to be transformative, we really have to discover the humanity in each and every one of us. I'm going to tell you another Christian story. I think you'll be okay. I actually, after I finished, well, I think I was still in seminary, I was going to teach a Bible class here, and we couldn't find any Bibles. None. So I went to become a United Church of Christ minister, which is Unitarians considering Christ. And have since served a Lutheran church, an Episcopal church, and a Presbyterian church, so go figure. But anyway, back to my story. This was a story, it's about St. Francis. Y'all know St. Francis. He was a good guy. He loved everybody. He had animals, he had squirrels on his shoulder and birds circling around his head, and he had goats and pigs and kids following him everywhere, loved everybody, was well known, well loved. The one thing he was afraid of was a leper. He hated lepers. He was terrified of lepers, terrified of them, would do anything not to get near them. And one day he was walking down the road, and the squirrels were on top of him, and the birds were flying over, and everybody was following him, and there was this little bundled wrap at the side of the road. And as he walked by, he heard, "Help me." And he thought, oh no, it's a leper. Not going near it. Can't do it, can't do it. So kept walking. And a second time, he heard that little word, "Help me." Nope, not going to do it. Somebody else will pick him up, not a problem. And then the third time he heard the "help me," and he felt that calling. He went back and he picked up that little bundle, and he looked into the face, and he saw the face of Jesus. In Unitarian terms, he saw the face of humanity in that little child. And that's what we need to do. We need to learn to see the face of humanity in each and every single person we encounter, whether we agree with them or not. We are all born of the same stardust, and we will all return to the dust and to the stars. We are all humans. And if we truly want to make this world a little kinder and a little better and a little gentler, the best way to do it, the best way to widen our circles, the best way to break through those silos is to hear the other story, to have a meal with them, to talk to them, to listen to them, to discover who they are. And you will be a better person. I'm going to leave you one more personal story. I was in Green Star one day, a few years ago, having a really miserable day, feeling sorry for myself, mad at a bunch of people, just annoyed. Couldn't, just having a regular old bad day. And there was a gentleman standing there, very thin. He looked like Stony Lonesome from Fried Green Tomatoes. I don't know if any of you, one of my favorite movies. But he was just standing there, kind of quietly, kind of hunched over the way Stony was. And I looked over at him, and his fingertips were black. And I thought to myself, well, maybe he needs a cup of coffee. So I offered him a cup of coffee, and he took it and just kind of held it and said thank you. And then I thought, well, maybe he needs something to eat. So I asked him if he'd like a turkey sandwich, and he said yes. And I gave him a turkey sandwich. And he said to me, in very soft words, he said, God bless you. That changed my day. It changed my life. When you can make those connections, even if you're having a bad day, not only are you helping that person, but you are also helping yourself. So in a world without end, I'm done, and may it be so, and may you indeed know that we are all very blessed, and that out of our blessings, we are called to bless others. So I'd say amen, but I won't do that. Amen. Amen. Actually, this is what I do in my church. I say, Alleluia. One more time, Alleluia. Here we go.
Thank you so much, Barb. I invite you all to rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn. This is in your teal hymnal, number 1029, Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear.
Love knocks and waits for us to hear, to open and invite. Love longs to quiet every fear and seeks to set things right. Love offers life in spite of foes who threaten and condemn. Embracing enemies, love goes the second mile with them. Love comes to heal the broken heart, to ease the troubled mind. Without a word, love bids us start to ask and seek and find. Love knocks and enters at the sound of welcome from within. Love sings and dances all around and feels new life
Peace of God, salam aleiki, skano, namaste, and may the force be with you.
As we extinguish the chalice, we gather the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action into our hearts and carry it forward into the dawning day. Go now in peace.